My son went into our garage to get a basketball, and as he was grabbing the basketball, he heard screaming, and he thought that it was just the kids laughing and screaming. He said, but he heard the screaming again, and he knew it just didn't sound right. And he ran over there, and he said he just saw the dog had my daughter, Advocacy, the 6-year-old. The dog had Advocacy by the arm. He had her arm in his mouth, and he was dragging her up and down the street. And my son and the soldier that lives at the house BC was playing at, had already ran outside into the middle of the street and was trying to hit the dog with a broom. And he and my son were just trying to hit the dog, beat the dog, get the dog off of BC. But the dog, my son said the dog became more enraged as they hit the dog. And he would grab BC up by her neck, drop her down on the ground, pick her back up, drop her back down. He drug her up and down the street. My son said this went on for minutes on end. And finally, one of the witnesses had gathered. People could hear all the screaming. People could hear all the crying. The father-in-law of the soldier finally took the dog by his neck, I guess, and just actually literally lifted him off of BC. And BC was just limp in the middle of the street, and my son picked her up, and he was trying to grab her, and she was trying to run, to our front door. And he ran to my front door with her, and as she got to the front door, she got so weak her legs buckled and she collapsed at the front door, and the dog came back. And he grabbed her up again, and he began to viciously attack her again. And the soldier and my son a second time had to remove the dog from Advocacy, and my son opened the front door, threw BC in the front door, and shut it. And when he turned to throw BC into the front door, the 5-year-old twin that was there, the dog took the 5-year-old twin's arm in his mouth and began to attack the 5-year-old twin. And so then my son he said, and I asked him, I said, how did you get the dog off of Avery once his arm was in his mouth? And he said, I just grabbed his body and snatched it away. And he said, once again I opened the door, and he said, I threw Avery in, and he said, I ran in the door myself, and he said, I shut it. I wasn't home when the original attack happened. My husband had just gone to start his shift at work. I was right up the street going to Liberty Hill to pick up my oldest daughter. And I had told my son, who is a 6th grader at Liberty Hill Middle School, to take the 2 little ones. He was playing outside with them. They were at a friend's house a couple of doors down. And I had just told him to take the kids inside of the house, and that I was leaving to go pick up my oldest daughter, and that I would be right back when it happened. I had picked up my oldest daughter, and we had stopped at a convenience store right there in the neighborhood, and something told me to call my son. And when I called my son, I could hear him breathing and running, and the phone hung up. And then I called him back again, because that was strange to me, and I don't know what had given me this mother's intuition to call him. But I called him again, and he said, Mom, hurry home. BC's being attacked by a dog. Hurry, she's bleeding everywhere. And just at that moment, as he was saying that, I could hear ambulances coming everywhere. I could hear fire trucks lighting up my whole neighborhood, and I was so afraid. I was just a few blocks away, but literally as I drove those last 5 or 6 blocks to my house, I could hear my whole neighborhood just lit up, and I knew this must be really bad. And when I pulled up, I didn't even park my car. I just pulled up right in front of my garage. And I could see an animal control person. I could see ambulances, police just swarming, my front yard. And I jumped out of the car. And when I jumped out, an animal control officer said to me, Ma'am, the dog is still loose. The dog is still loose. Get in a car. And when he said that, I turned and I jumped into the car with him. And what I didn't know is that my oldest daughter, Maya, she was upset and had started crying on the way home because she, knew what was going on. And I didn't know she had jumped out the passenger side in the back. She had jumped out of the car, when I jumped out of the car. And just as he's saying to me, the dog is still on the loose, and I'm jumping into the car with him, I turned to look out of the car, and I saw the dog come around the corner, and he jumped on my daughter Maya's back. And he began to attack her. She was his 3rd victim. I could see her hair in his mouth, and I thought that he was gnawing her face. I was extremely scared. So I jumped out of the animal control car, and I ran towards her. And I got right here and slipped and fell. In fact, my glasses were found in that bush a week later. I jumped out, slipped and fell right there. And he heard the noise of me hitting the ground. He was attacking her. And she was saying, "Mom, help me, Mom." And he heard me when I screamed when I hit the ground, and he turned. And I could see him. He was running towards me. And at the same time, I could hear the footsteps. I could hear the KPD lady coming. And she had looked like a black baton in her hand. And she hit him several times with it, and he fled down that way. And I want to say the house next to the house where it started is where she shot and killed him. She chased him down that way, and that was where she eventually shot and killed him. Nobody knew the full extent of Adebisi's injuries. She had the most traumatic of injuries. The dog almost tore her arm from her body. She was missing 2 very sizable chunks from the back of her arm. And the dog also attacked her on her back and her neck, and the wounds to her face were from being dragged up and down the street. So she had significant wounds to the side of her face. She had a puncture wound that looked like a bullet hole in the front of her arm, the arm that she was attacked on, which was her left arm. And then she was also missing the 2 chunks in the back from the left arm. And her back itself was bleeding profusely. She had just wounds up and down her shoulders, her back. It was very scary to look at. They got BC on the ambulance. My daughter, Maya, the oldest one, who was 13 at the time, she had a deep puncture wound in her back that was straight across part of her back. The dog had shredded her shirt and her underclothes that she had on when he was attacking her. And my son Avery had bite wounds up and down the lower extremity of his right arm. When we got to Seton, the doctor, looked at the extent of Adebisi's injuries and decided that she would most likely need surgery and that she needed a pediatric surgeon. And so we transferred her by ambulance to McLean Children's Hospital in Temple. And we had surgery that night. We had surgery, I believe, at 2 a.m. in the morning is the initial one we had to try to close the wounds up. And they were very concerned about infection because they told me, had this wound come from a car accident, it wouldn't be as bad as it coming from a dog's mouth. And at that time, we didn't know if the dog had rabies or not either because the owner hadn't produced the records right away. It took him time to be able to produce. In fact, I think it took him till the next day to be able to produce the record saying whether or not the dog had the rabies vaccination. The aftermath of the attack has been really trying. In the original first few days, Adebisi was in shock, and I don't think she fully understood what happened to her. In fact, she had a concussion, and she kind of went in and out of, a dog attacked me, and then it was, I don't know what happened to me. So she went back and forth. As we got home from, she was really brave. She did really good with her surgical procedures and everything. But as the days went on and we got home, I began to realize very quickly that this was going to be a way longer, more drawn out process than I had thought it was going to be. She ended up not going back to school until she had been home for a month and a week before she was able to return to school. And basically, physically, she had to have her wound packed on a daily basis for weeks, and my husband, being a nurse, took care of that part for her, but it was extremely excruciating. It was very difficult to deal with. I mean, the type of pain that she was in was unbelievable. She had to, be on painkillers and things like that. And then the other wound from the surgeries was just monitored very closely by the doctors, and it had to stay wrapped up and everything, and the wrapping, had to be changed. She wasn't able to move the arm. She did have some nerve damage in that arm to where she wasn't able to, move it regularly, and it hurt upon contact. So it was really trying to have 7 children in the house and no one bump Adebisi's arm. And psychologically, I think that has been the biggest toll. That's what's interesting about it. As the days went on, it was clear that Adebisi was suffering from PTSD. Being that I'm an educator and trained in, looking at certain symptoms in children, and then my sister is also a school counselor. My sister was the one that told me right away, you need to have these children evaluated for PTSD. Adebisi was afraid to step outside. She was afraid to step out the door. She felt like danger was going to come to her. if she left the house. She can't be away from me for too long. She can do the school day, but if I leave the house outside of the school day, like to go to the store or anything, she's extremely afraid that something bad will happen to her or that something bad will happen to me. So she runs through the house crying. And let me just tell you, this child was very, very mild-mannered, very outgoing, very happy-go-lucky, not a care in the world. So these characteristics for Advocacy in particular are the exact opposite of who I've always known her to be. Just a fun-loving kid, not a care in the world, didn't think twice about anything, loved being outside, loved being at parks, loved playing. She had no attachment issues, to me before that, where she had to be up under me all the time or was afraid if, I wasn't there. None of that. And so those are all the things that she deals with now, just, being just afraid in general, just knowing that being outside means the danger could come her way. And I took her to the doctor, and sure enough, she was, diagnosed with acute and severe PTSD. And so she's doing weekly therapy sessions now to help her deal with the fear of dogs, the fear of being attacked, the fear that something bad will happen to her, just all of that. For the two oldest kids, and even though my son Adejuan was not actually attacked, he was there and saw the trauma of it. He said to me, I thought that she was going to die. He said, we tried so hard to get the dog off of her. He said, Mom, he said, she was fighting for a long time. He said, she was crying, she was kicking. He said, and then she just went limp. And he said, I thought then that was it. So basically my son thought that he had saw his sister die in front of him. He just thought that she was lifeless for a while. She just stopped screaming, she stopped crying, she stopped making any noise. And he said at that point that dog still had her. And he said we just couldn't get her. And he said, I just thought that was it. He deals with feelings of helplessness like any child would, of not being able to stop the situation and, of feeling like he didn't do enough, or could I have done more, or what could I have done different? And it's affected him. It's affected him at school. He told the therapist he has a hard time focusing. He said he thinks about it every day. And that surprised me because I didn't know that he thought about it every day. But he said, I'll be doing my work and I'll just think about it. And he said, I'll just look off and think about it. And he said, and I'll just think of different things like, what happened and what I could have done, or, the dog, or, just various different things. So it's had a strong effect on him. And he also was diagnosed with severe PTSD. My oldest daughter, Ademaya, she also was diagnosed with severe PTSD. And I saw an immediate drop in, I saw a, how do I explain this? Just a deep, it's almost like she went into herself, and, her grades went down a little bit. She's a straight A student. She's in the National Junior Honor Society. She had never had any trouble at school. Top of her class, everything. And I saw a slight dip, in her grades. I saw her not be as social, as she was before. She was afraid. She didn't want to talk about it. She said when she got back to school, everyone wanted to know about it. Some of the kids had video of it. That's all everyone wanted to talk about. And she just didn't want to talk about it. So she started, avoiding her friends a little just to, get away from the situation, because it was just all the talk in our neighborhood for weeks after it happened. People have to understand that you cannot value your dog or your animal's freedom above the life of a child. If you're going to own a dog that, just if you're going to own a dog, period, but especially if you're going to own a vicious breed of dog, people have got to be educated and understand the behaviors that are unacceptable when you're owning a dog like that. You cannot let these dogs be free. You can't let them roam free in your front yard. I see that all the time. I see people with small, short chain link fences and two huge Dobermans that are almost taller than the fence. And, they think that this is okay. And it's to me more about educating people. And maybe because I'm an educator, I think that way. But I think to myself, it's not just about the dogs themselves. It's not just about the owners. Because you know what? I don't believe for 1 minute that the guy who owned the dog that attacked Advocacy mistreated that dog. I don't think, you can tell how people are. You can tell something about people when you talk to them and you deal with them. This man has other dogs, and I don't think that he's had problems with them. I don't think he was negligent with the dog themselves as far as treating it bad or not socializing it. I don't think he did any of that. I think that there were problems with maybe the fence and stuff like that, and people don't think to themselves how important it is that I have to do this ASAP. I've got to get this fixed because what could happen to someone else? I think people don't get that. They don't get that it's your behavior in dealing with your dog that makes a very big difference in how they are. I won't stop until I make some progress. If there's one thing I am, it's very, very diligent. I have a master's degree in education with 7 kids for a reason. I don't stop until I get through what I want to get through. And I won't stop here. I will go to Austin. I will go to the federal government. I don't care where I have to go. I will lobby to make sure that people understand the importance of making sure. And it's important to me that we don't isolate one group of people and make them feel angry, like we're just saying, oh, all owners of certain breeds of dogs are horrible. To me, there's not any benefit in that. The benefit is going to be in trying to change some of the laws in getting vicious dogs. Maybe we need to have a class that people take first. Maybe we need to have people have to sign paperwork to say, I understand I have to, have my fence checked every 3 months. Maybe we need to put some stipulations out there so that people think twice before they own that kind of dog, so that they understand what's going to come with it. It's going to be a lot of different needs. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to be more time consuming. We just need to make sure people understand that before they own these dogs. And it's not about being angry. The anger to me doesn't mean anything. That's what I told the owner. I'm not going to spend my life angry at you because of something that happened. What I would like to do is educate people and let people know these are the behaviors. It's all about education to me. If we can get in there and we can get these dog owners to understand, the role they have to play if they're going to own certain type of dogs, I think we can make a big difference, and I think we can do it without as much opposition as we've come against. We've come against a lot of opposition because it's almost like being prejudiced. That's how people look at it, because people feel like you're attacking them because, oh, you're attacking my breed of dog. That's not fair. You're attacking me because I own this type of dog. That's not fair. So, when you isolate people and you have people feeling like they're under attack, you're just met with so much opposition. If you can do it in a way where you can make people be unified, I don't think most people who own vicious dogs want kids to get killed and attacked. But I also don't think they understand what they need to do. So I think if we can, unify it and bring it together so that people understand, okay, this is what your role needs to be. This is what someone else's role needs to be. This is how we need to come together, and we can stop this from happening. Then I think we'll get there. And I'm not going to stop until we get there. I can't let another child, I cannot let this go unnoticed like it's okay. I just can't. There's no way.